and to Embracing Soul's Journey. This is really about coming together and have a reflective conversation about what we believe in terms of spirituality, metaphysics, our own journey into understanding our soul and who we truly are. I am Dr. ISELA GARCIA. I'm going to come back and introduce myself a little bit further, but first I want Angel to introduce herself and tell us a little bit about what you do and who you are.
Okay, so I am ANGELIQUE. I am a healer and intuitive. I own a business in the west side of Phoenix, Litchfield Park, called Emeraldheart. I am about bringing healing and enlightenment to those that are seeking. And I believe that everybody has an opportunity to take a step if they choose to.
All right, so thank you. We're just going to kind of go with the flow. Next we have Tina, and I'm just going to kind of put this out there. We're actually related. So just so that, we're cousins. And so it's funny how the world kind of brings us back to full circle. So Tina, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Tina TRINIDAD, and I am a intuitive empath. I have been since I've not been an intuitive since I was been a child. I have Healing Rose Healing Arts. You can find me on Facebook or on Instagram. And I'm just excited to be here with all of you and share with you my journey.
Alrighty, so the three of us are going to come together on a monthly basis to really have conversations about all things spiritual, all things metaphysical, all things intuitive, but we're really coming from the perspective of our own personal journeys. It's one of the things that I think happens as we start seeking peace and happiness and start seeking the truth of who we are. We look to other people for guidance, and we look and we listen to how they describe their journey. The tricky thing, though, is that each one of us are going to experience this just a little bit differently. And the three of us have come together many times, in pairs, and then three of us together. And our conversations and our experiences are so, I think, interesting, number one, but diverse because we experience things so uniquely different.
Yes.
I am an intuitive. We are an intuitive that everyone is intuitive. I want to make that very clear. Everyone can do what it is that we are describing here and that we will continue to reflect on. The problem is that we get in our own way. And sometimes that's our own issues that we grew up with in our childhood. Sometimes there are past lives issues. There's all these things that get in the way of our peace of mind and connecting with who we truly are. And so as an intuitive, one of the things that I do is connect to sort of the present person and figure out what some of those challenges are and how it aligns with soul's overall growth. So that's what I do. But what I'd like to do quickly is I want to go back to Angelique, and because this was her idea about coming together and having these kinds of conversations. So I want you to share a little bit about how this came to be and what sort of your vision or your hope for this is.
Okay, well, we had a reading a little year ago. Yeah, a year ago. And I had mentioned that we would be coming together in the future. I just didn't know what we were doing at that time. And we'd seen each other a couple times since then. And then one day, your cousin came in and we were all sitting here talking back here. And I instantly knew that this was what we were meant to do. We were meant to bring all our experiences into one beautiful genre of understanding for people to see that we all have these abilities, like you say, but yet we're so different. Mm-hmm. And helping people, too, that are in different religions, different journeys of life to understand that this is a normal thing. This is nothing that we're going out and reaching and trying to do these harmful things. This is what we were gifted with. And we need to learn to embrace who we are and grow with what we have. So I just thought this would be a great opportunity. We're not pros, we're not masters, we're not gurus. We're just three beautiful women just having an experience and learning about each other and what we could bring to others.
Yeah. I think what's important, the message that I think we'll continually say throughout this entire journey, and it is a journey. You need to know it's a journey. And I think one of the things sometimes we think we're trying to reach a destination. We're trying to get to the end all. Like, okay, once I get there, then. And really, this is a continual journey of understanding truth. And when I say truth, I mean who we truly are at the deepest level of this physical body, beyond this time and space. And so I'm hoping, at least for me anyway, and I hope I speak for the two of you as well, is that you see this as part of your own journey, your own process.
Oh, most definitely.
Those of you who are watching, to not look at us as the way to get from point A to point B, although I do offer those for those of you who really need that kind of support, but that you are going to have your own unique experience. Okay.
I want to add to that, what I loved about ISELA helped me whenever because I shoved my abilities down for a long, long time. It wasn't acceptable, and we'll go into that a little bit more. But what I loved about ISELA's a true teacher in every sense, because she basically, and I love her candidness. I mean, she's, you have to do your work. And I so appreciate, I didn't understand that at the time, but now I do understand, because it's my journey. It's what my truth is. And she can help me, or to be able to come to, hey, this is, or coach me, I should say. But it's really, truly her having me look within. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I loved about going to her. And sometimes in the beginning I'd be like, what? Why can't you just tell me? Because you're so agitated in the beginning, but she does a great job at helping coach individuals to be able to go on their path.
So I want to share the story. You were having, and I hope you're okay with me sharing this story, but you were having some challenges with your son, your older son.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was before I had come out of the closet, what I call the spiritual closet.
Yeah.
I have just always, I think we've all had incidences, experiences early on before we knew what it was called.
Right.
Like before we even knew how to name it, right? Mm-hmm. We would see things, we would hear things, we would know things, we would feel things. I think everyone has that. It's that phone call, you know who it is before you answer it. Yes. That's your intuition.
Right.
And so I've always had those experiences. I've been sort of hiding in the closet for a very long time, because I think we're all afraid of being labeled a witch or,
right.
This horrible, evil thing, especially if you grow up religious, and we're going to talk about that because I had to kind of shed that for many years. But she had called me about her son, and I remember I was at my sister's in California when you said, I'm having these challenges. And I remember standing outside of her apartment. She has these little hills. And I remember standing at the top of one, and I looked up and I was like, okay, ISELA, just tell her. Tell her you know this because of this. Like, you know it because it's beyond this experience, and these are the reasons why he chose you as a mom. Here's the reason. This is what you need to grow at. This is why it's been orchestrated this way. Mm-hmm. And I remember feeling so much anxiety around telling you, because I was afraid, it was the family. Nobody in my family, at least that side of the family, no one knew. And I was freaking out. And then I think your response to me was like, oh, yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. And then you started to come out with, I've always had those kinds of experiences, and so is my mom. And so I was like, holy schmoly.
Yeah, we were in our 20s before we really probably came out to each other, huh?
Yeah.
When we started working together.
Yeah.
Because there's that sense of, you need to not talk about it. You need to kind of shove it down, that type of thing. But yeah, I totally agree with that. But I know what you're talking about. You're almost at that ledge. And sometimes the spirit they're really tricky. They'll like push you. Mm-hmm. And you're like, no, but I'm scared. I don't want to say anything. And lo and behold, they're pushing you for a reason, because it is a safe space for you to be able to share. And it broadened my horizons. And it actually brought me peace.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
It's a bumpy journey.
It is.
It's a bumpy journey, and I think one of the things we got to get out of our heads is, people say this all the time, I feel like I took 2 steps and then I took 10 steps backwards. There is no backwards. There's no going backwards. That's part of the journey. So when we just look at it and go, it's part of the journey, it just is.
Right. It just means there's something else you need to tap into before you can go any further than where you would like to be.
So let's talk about spirituality. Let's talk about what does that mean to you? What does spirituality? Because, one of the first things I ever read, or things that really resonated with me, was religion were for those who were afraid to go to hell, and spirituality were for those who had already been there. And I heard that when I was in my 20s. And, I come from a very tumultuous childhood. And for me, I joined 6 different religions. And I was with Jehovah's Witnesses for a very long time, like the longest, 7 years or something like that. And I kept seeking and seeking and seeking and seeking. And then it finally occurred to me that it was really about my relationship with God.
Right.
And it was like a ta-da, but that quote spoke like it was everything to me. It opened up a different perspective for me. So who wants to go first about your...
I'll add on to that, because I totally understand what you're saying. Because I grew up one way, and that was just the way it was. You didn't question, you just believed, and there was a lot of guilt surrounding in my particular religion. So I was really afraid. It wasn't until college that I took world religion classes. And I mean, that class just gives you all of the different religions and I was actually seeking, going, where do I fit in? Where am I fitting in this box? And I would be, okay, I'm a little bit of that. I'm a little bit of that. Where am I? And I think you're right. Now, for me in the beginning, I thought it was my spirituality was my religion. Now for me, my spirituality is my journey and my relationship with God. So that's just kind of where I'm at with that. But it did start with the religion part and the spirituality.
I think it kind of does that with everyone, actually. I mean, most of us grow up walking into a church at one time or another. And some of us, we feel like it either fits or it doesn't. It's just really what's in our hearts and what's telling us, because we've already done this before. We've done this. This is not our first trip around the block.
But it's also whatever, as parents, it's whatever we are brought into. Yeah. For me personally, for my children, I brought them up spiritually. I wanted them to be able to, when they became of age, to be able to make those decisions.
Right.
I didn't want to have, and there's nothing wrong with that, but for me personally, because I just fought with that so much as a kid, that I wanted a different experience for my kids.
Well, I mean, that's interesting, but I kind of grew up in my life to where I knew I wasn't from here. I mean, it was... I don't recall seeing angels, but I remember my mom telling me, I was 1.5 years, 2 years, and she's like, oh, Mom, look at the angels up there. And I would be saying that, but I don't remember that far back. But I do remember seeing spirits. I do remember seeing spaceships at 7 years old. And they'd be hovering above me, and I'm like, wow, this is fascinating. But I thought everybody saw what I saw. So, but again, if you don't grow up in that area, you think that it's normal, because if you see it, so she's got to see it, and she's got to see it, but in fact you're probably the only one seeing what nobody else is seeing. So, but I just knew, I knew coming in here. I would tell my mom, I want to go home. She goes, you are home. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I knew I wasn't from here. I mean, my body is, my soul came in, and my spirit came in, but it's like, but I'm not here. My home is so much greater than this. I mean, I'm not saying that the earth isn't great, by the way. I think it's beautiful. It's just, it's so much chaos in the world that, that we, everybody's finding little pockets to hold on to, little pieces that don't need to be there. And so it's kind of hard to not see it, even though you choose not to see it and not be a part of it, because in reality, you really are a part of it. Does that make sense? So it's kind of, it's just learning to grow and be our spirit, because that's the one that's really, like you said earlier, that's the one that's going to get us where we need to go. Our soul's on a journey. It came here to learn some things, to take care of some business from the past. And now we're just moving along. If there's any little side paths you want to take, well, you better get them now because you're not going to be able to do them later. So, and hopefully, you'll grow for them. That's all. I mean, really, that's all there is. It's just growing from our experiences. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have been labeled as witches and devil worshippers and all these things because of what we can do, and yet this has been going on since it's even listed in the Bible. So we've been doing this forever. Mm-hmm. And God created us. So I'm sorry, I cannot see what we do as not being beneficial to helping others. Mm-hmm. Especially when it comes to a good place.
Right, absolutely. I always had a knowledge of that whatever I was, because I get a lot of my information through my solar plex. I mean, I've always, since as a child, that's what my download. And then what it basically is just energy. So it's kind of hard for when people were to say, oh, the connotation of witches, which it's not, to me, I have no judgment on that. But all it to me really is an exchange of energy.
Yeah.
And I'm able to read the data that comes with it, the frequencies that come with it. And people, when I tell them that, it seems they can understand that a little bit better than where are you getting this information from. If you don't have tarot cards, not that there's anything wrong with that, but if you don't have that in front of you, how are you getting that information? Because they have this idea of what we're supposed to look like if.
Yeah, but there's many paths to divination, right. So, I mean, no different than religion. Because like I said, when I was younger, I did try to, my grandparents were Nazareth, and my mother was Lutheran, and it just never worked. It just never fit me. And then I even tried to become a Catholic one time, and the priest had told me, I'm sorry, you're not Catholic material. And I thought, you know what? And I told him, I said, you're right. I said, because last time I remember, it was God's place to judge me, not you. And I walked out the door.
Oh, wow.
And so I knew from then on that my path was me. My heart was my path. It was my God source, it was my creator source, and it was everything that I could make my life to be. And that's what I chose to do.
So my journey, I think my earliest memory of my journey was really my faith in and my trust. So it was my faith and trust. And let me share a little bit about that. I came from a home where there was a lot of fear. And I used to, for safety reasons, lock myself in the room. And there were several incidences, pretty significant incidences, where there was so much fear. And now, I do lots of work around trauma-informed care and understanding what happens in terms of our brain development, because there are two parts to this. There's not only our spiritual selves, but there's the vessel that we're in, right, and how we create the neurosynaptic connections in our brain. So we're dealing with those old patterns of behavior, and we're also dealing with knowing the truth of our spiritual selves. And so here's little girl ISELA, who is very, very fearful of her mother. And one of the things that happened is I had a relationship with my father where he was the person that I would call and turn to just to talk to him, just to kind of feel some sense of connection to someone. And my mom got these phones from Conair. I don't know if you remember Conair, but they had like the blow dryers and the phones, and right? And she would go, it was with her job that she had, they would go to the employee store and they would flip-flop from where she worked, and you could buy up all this stuff. So she would buy these phones and blow dryers and all this stuff for gifts. So we had this like gift closet full of gifts that we could give to people, which was not a fun thing as a child. You don't want to take a phone to a teacher. I'm like,
blow dryer, maybe.
No, I was like embarrassed. I'm like, I know it has nothing to do with who you are, but here's a phone. But we had these phones, and in my home, there was, strict, like I couldn't be on the phone. I had to ask permission. I had to talk in front of her. I mean, it was like that kind of experience. And so I remember feeling desperate, just completely and totally desperate. And I stole one of the phones from the closet. And I took it to my bedroom, shut my door, and I was determined, because we had, the phone jacks in the rooms, but there wasn't an actual connector. Right. And so I was determined that I was going to plug this phone up. Like I was determined I was going to be able to get an outlet out of my house. And I tried. I pulled the cable out of the wall, not knowing what the hell I was doing. I pulled the cable out of the wall. I sliced it with some scissors. I was like, I didn't know what I was doing. And then I tried for hours, and I couldn't make it work. I couldn't make it work. And I think I had taken like the actual jack from another room, or I got it from somewhere. I don't remember that piece.
Boy, you're
I know,
adventurous.
right? And then I went to sleep, and at 3 a.m, I had a clear dream as to how to hook it up. Like clear as day. I got up and I made the connections. I did whatever I needed to do. And all of a sudden I got a dial tone.
Are you kidding?
No.
It actually...
No.
Wow.
I had my entire life. I
need one of those dreams.
But I had those dreams my entire life. I had do this and then this will happen. Do this and this, like make sure that it's like I could, in my dreams and in my just knowing, and that's where my faith came from. So my faith came from, like, I kept telling myself, if I do these things, everything will be okay. And I would get these, this validation from the universe. But at the time I was like, 15, 16, 17. I mean, like really hard, horrendous experience that I was having as a young person. And I just kept hanging on, saying, you know what, if I do this, everything will work out better. And I kept having these sort of visions on how to help me through the experience. So I had this deep-rooted knowing or faith,
right,
that helped me get through that experience. And I think that's kind of what my seed was for me to continue this work, because I just believed that I was going to be okay in the end. So that's where the very beginning for my, I think, true spirituality, because I did join all those religions looking for answers. And I wasn't looking for just answers. I was looking for peace. And the problem was with good intentions. When I left home, and I literally left home with the shirt on my back. And when I left home, I made the intentional decision to be different. Like I was going to do a different life. I was going to choose a different way. I wasn't going to deal with depression. I wasn't going to live in the same experience that I had growing up. But lo and behold, because of the neurosynaptic connections in my brain and all of the experiences I had, I started to live that cycle. And so I was seeking outside myself to find solution to the depression I was feeling, to find solutions to my inability to have healthy relationships. Like I was just seeking, and realized that even with my best effort and my best intentions, without the work, you were saying, without the work, it wasn't going to magically happen.
Yeah, it doesn't stick.
Yeah.
I mean, my experience with that, and sometimes when people come to me, they're almost like, fix me. And I mean, I could do energy work on them. I can look into them and tell them where or what frequencies in order to help with their chakras and things like that. But if the intention is not there, then it will come back around. And it's like a vicious cycle, because they have to do the work and they have to learn how to do this. And one of my own family members was like, fix me. I know you know how to do this. Fix me. And I'm like, I can't. It's this is a journey that I can be alongside with you, and I can share space with you, like that type of thing. But I cannot do this. This is something that you need to do. And I basically did that, and it's still a journey. For me, it's still a journey too, as well. It's for me, I think that's one of the beautiful part of this life, is we're here in this physical earth because we get to experience all of these wonderful things. Whether, people are like, oh, it's unfortunate that we have, what's going on in the world. But if we didn't have this, how would we know the other extreme? How would we be able to experience all of the emotions that is what's so beautiful about living this earth, on this earth, and in this human body? So.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I can totally understand that. And I mean, we're all going through many trials and errors every time we do step on this plane. Not to mention there are other dimensions, but here we're having many experiences, and sometimes we even parallel with the people that we care about because they're actually walking the similar path with us.
Right.
So it's just kind of growing and gaining insight from them so that we can bring the healing to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a healer and intuitive, for many of us, we really have to do the work. We cannot, we're not good teachers unless we've experienced our own, whatever it may be, so that we could be the catalyst of putting things in place for other people.
Well, and this is the way I feel. Even with the information that I know now and the abilities that I have, it's still, I mean, I wake up just like anybody else. I put on my shoes and pants just like anybody else. I go shopping, sometimes meet people at Costco too as well. And hey, I am just going through this life just like anybody else.
Right.
It doesn't mean also that I have my channels open all the time. For me, as an extreme empath, I have to be able to put those boundaries up, or for me, I just turn my dial off, or whatever my open sign is down for business, just so I can live on this physical earth. And so but messages do still come through. I just choose to be able to put those boundaries up so I can live just like anybody else in this physical world.
Wow.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that for a minute, because there are a couple things that came up. The first thing is, I think one of the things you described is in order for us to know or want love or peace, we need to experience war. And in order for us, it's like the dichotomy of being able to have two experiences and wanting and the desire to choose the one that is less distressful, right? You want to feel peace, you want to feel love, and one of the things that I find really interesting is in my own personal journey, I really, I have come to a place now where I recognize, and it was something that I said to universe. It was an actual declaration, I would say about maybe 10, 15 years ago, before my daughter was born, so about 15 years ago. The declaration was, I choose to learn through love and not fear. Mm-hmm. I choose to learn the easy way, not the hard way. And what I mean by that is, just as a person, a lot of my friends were much older than me. And so they would make these decisions in life, and they would go, oh, ISELA, do this. And I'm like, okay, I will do exactly that. Oh, ISELA, don't do this. I'm like, okay, I won't do that. And so I was always really open to learn from the wisdom that others shared with me. And it was really a choice I made. Like I said, I'm willing to learn through love and not through adversity. And I think that we have believed and bought into the perspectives that that's the way we learn, is through difficult, and people say it, God won't give you anything that you can't handle, mm-hmm. right? The hard things are what make you, and I used to believe that. I don't any longer. Mm-hmm. And I don't, because I think if I believe it, then that's how I will learn. I believe that I've chosen to learn through experiences that are the whispers of the universe. That's what I call it. The universe whispers. And if I don't listen, they whisper again. And if I don't listen, 2x4 comes across my head.
I've had that too.
The universe says, we whispered.
Mm-hmm. You didn't hear us.
You didn't want to pay attention.
Yeah.
You thought you knew better.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's been my journey for the last several years. But there was something else you also said that I want to bring up. So you I think identify yourself as an extreme empath.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before I didn't know what it was.
But share that. What that means to you. Share that.
Sure. As a child, I remember having horrible stomach aches. And I remember as a child just feeling everything around me. And even when I went to church, when things were being told, scary stuff for me as a child, when I was being told, I internalized it. I would feel everything, even in a story.
So where do you feel it?
In my stomach.
Okay, so when somebody, and it's not just what's happening, it's someone's energy, right? Or
then I didn't know, but yes, it's
okay.
Energy. But then I started feeling, okay, let me give you something that really stood out. 2020, back in the day they had 2020.
The show?
Okay. 2020. Yes. And
Yeah.
I remember us as a family all sitting down because we only had one TV.
Oh, I love 2020 with you down.
Yes, yes.
Right. I used to record it.
Yeah.
I still do when it comes on. I'm like, gotta
Yeah,
watch it.
I haven't watched it probably since. But I remember as a child, and I was behind my parents' chair because they were watching television. I must have been about 6 or 7. But they were watching a show about AIDS. And at that time, it was, big and...
It was in the 80s.
Yeah, it was in the 80s. And I didn't know, because I was a child, I didn't know that I couldn't get AIDS at that point.
Right.
But I remember in that room, so many, like my parents, my brothers, because we all sat down as a family, they were so scared. There was so much fear that I remember hiding behind the chair because my stomach hurt so bad. And I think that was my pivoting point, that it wasn't just my stomach. That
was everyone else.
It was everybody else in the room.
The collective.
And I could feel everybody in the room. And that to me was so hard. At nighttime, it's shutting off. And being able to say, and it wasn't until probably about 5 years ago that I'm like, not my circus, not my monkey. And then I gave it back, and she gave me this beautiful tool that, return, send it with love, those type of things. And now I do. I'm like, not my circus, not my monkey, and I send love and blessings to you, and I give it back to them. And I have no guilt at all that comes along with it. But as a child, I did, and I mean, all the way up until,
a couple years ago.
There was a time I was so empathic that I'd be like, oh my God, and I'd be like this, like,
yes.
move it.
Yes.
Because
what is your earliest experience or memory of picking up on other people's emotions?
Oh God, since I was 4 or 5 years old.
And where did you feel it? How did you?
Mine was always in my heart.
Okay.
So, and even a lot of my downloads are in my heart or in my head. So, I would, like, my brother, we all had the measles, and my brother tossed his cookies all over the bed, and I just get up there, and mind you, any other time I'd be right there with him doing the same thing. But I was just, I got it. Let me take care of this for you. Didn't even call on the parents. I just knew to do that. So I was like, wow. And I thought about that all my life. It's like, why would I do that? Why would I do something so disgusting? I mean, but it was just something that I naturally did, and I could see colors and stuff around people. And I just things I knew.
Did you ever tell anybody that you saw colors as a child?
No, because I think I thought everybody did. So it wasn't like I was like, oh my God, look at the sky, it's pink. I didn't say that until in my 30s or 40s. I was like, oh my God, the sky's pink. And they're like, no, it's blue. And I'm like, no, it's pink. So, and so then I realized I wasn't so much seeing the sky, I was actually seeing my own aura. I was in my own, and I was like, oh, this is fascinating. And I'd be doing hair and stuff and see all these colors around people. And, I knew when they were dying. I knew where their body was sick. I was like, wow, this is fascinating stuff. But I never really saw it as a gift. I just thought it was normal. I mean, just like you guys, you just kind of assumed. But, I mean, I don't think I thought anything about telling my mom or dad what I saw, because something just within me, I guess, knew maybe that they wouldn't have an understanding. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I never thought to let them in on any of it. I just was just being a part of it.
And also different type of abilities too, because I grew up at a very, very young age. My mom did talk about her psychic abilities. So I knew about the mediumship or the psychic part of our family, but I didn't know about the empathic part of our family. So I was kind of like going, well, that's not my main way of getting information. So I didn't know. I was like, am I not? Because that's all I knew was just the psychic part of it. Yeah. But there's so many different, now that, I'm...
There's 8 or 9 different empaths now.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, it's like, I mean, we could just write books and books and probably still not be done with it.
Right.
My experience of being empathic is very different than the two of you. I think in part it was because I had to learn how to shut that part down growing up in the home that I did. Because it was too much for me to, I think, handle, to consume all of the energy that was in that space. And so I'm not as sensitive, I think, empathically, but I know it's not that I'm not as sensitive in the same way. It's that I know how to turn it on and off. So one of the things that I'm really good at, and it's what you were saying, Angelique, it's the same sort of idea, I think, is that you don't know that not everyone can do what you can do until you start having these conversations.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I used to work in crisis intervention. So I worked with, there was a lot of crises, a lot of circumstances, particularly with children. And so situations where harm is being done to family or to children. And so heavy energy, right? And I remember, and I used to be a director of these agencies. And so I remember a conversation I had with a very good friend of mine when, as we're working through becoming better teachers, becoming better social workers, I remember in that journey, my friend saying to me, ISELA, you're the one who's different, not everyone else. Because I used to get really frustrated that folks weren't implementing things quickly, understanding that this child needed this or that this family needed this. I was able to have clarity in the situation faster than, and I don't mean like in a competitive sort of way, but I didn't know that other people didn't see things as clearly as I did. And I remember getting frustrated going, well, what's the matter with everybody? Why can't you see what I see? And I realize it's that we all have different levels of experiences. And in those levels of experiences, I think is what we're trying to release. And so if you have abandonment concerns or you're fearful, you don't have a strong sense of worth, if you are constantly thinking about how others are going to perceive you, it's like all of these experiences that we quite honestly come into this lifetime to have, that we start to release those. It's when we start to release all of the outside shit is really what all the outside shit, we release this to get to the truth of who we are.
Absolutely.
And so that really became, I became super aware of that many years ago, that it's not that I'm better, we're better, anybody's better. We just are in different places.
Absolutely.
In our own journey.
And that's what I love about all of us getting together.
Yeah.
We're all in different places. And I think that can add value on people out there.
Well, and then there's times too, being an empath, because I think everyone really has that ability. Just like we said, everybody could be psychic, everybody could be a medium, everybody could be a healer, everybody's a teacher. But I think there's sometimes that it might be more pronounced, what I mean, in certain moments. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, there was a time that I have to tell you this because, oh my God, this was really, I have an identical twin. And so we were like the Corsican, basically, to where one feels pain and the other one doesn't. And I'm having these really bad pain, and my mom's taking me to the hospital, and my sister's going with us, and they're looking at me. There's nothing wrong with me. And all of a sudden, my sister passes out. It was her appendix that ruptured, but I was going through the pain. So it was, it was fascinating, And then I've even had another time. This is more recent, like 10 years ago, but my grandson had invited me to come out to Oregon to visit him and my youngest daughter, and they're like 4 years apart, so they're more like brother and sister. And so I slept in my daughter's room because she had gone out to California with her husband to take care of some stuff, and he goes, well, you just go ahead and sleep in Tiana's room. I was like, no problem. And the whole night I'm having these just really bad thoughts about sex and my grandson. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm crying because I'm just devastated that I'm having these just like, this is disgusting. And so I'm like, and I kept hearing, it's not yours. Don't worry, it's not, I don't care. Don't put the thoughts in my head, and I'm just having all these imaginations going crazy. And again, it's not yours. Not yours. Next morning, my grandson goes, Grandma, how'd you sleep? And I said, well, it was interesting. And he goes, good. He goes, I wanted you to sleep really comfortable. So I took my memory foam off my bed and I put it on Tiana's mattress. well, he's 18 years old and his sex life has got to be going crazy because I'm experiencing his stuff and my daughter's stuff on the mattress.
Oh.
That's all I kept thinking. So now I don't sleep on anybody's bed other than mine. I cannot do that energy anymore. I mean, it's crazy
so that's
stuff.
how sensitive you are.
Very sensitive. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, but I'm crying, I'm bawling because it's like, why would you put that kind of stuff in my head?
Right.
But it was because it was his energy and then my daughter's energy, you know, because they're in separate rooms, but together, that was it. That was all it took.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So we're going to kind of circle back to spirituality. And what I want to talk about, I think, or kind of come to a place of reflection, I think, more than anything. So we've talked about being empathic, which for some, that is the journey into this spiritual awareness, spiritual knowing. What else do you see or believe is a part of your spiritual journey? And either of you can take that.
That's pretty good. That's pretty deep, actually. I think that the spiritual journey for me, with my gifts, it's like I do believe, you know, I read many books, and I do believe some of our stuff is karmic, but it's, you know, it's karmic, and we're repeating some things to kind of make things right or to undo something we've done. You know what I mean? And create something positive versus the negative from it. So whether you've had a lifetime as, we'll just say, a Romanian gypsy or an assassin or whatever, you're going to come back because you really need to kind of look at who you are. Because you may have created that, but that's not who you are. It has nothing to do with who you are. It was just your moment of experience in life. So we're gaining insights to finding who we are, like you said earlier. But it's more on, I think the gifts they're a plus. They are a plus.
It can be challenging.
Yeah, they are a plus, and yes, challenging, but it gives us great insight to say, okay, we need to kind of slow down about, maybe back up and look at something, or how are we going to take this? You know what I mean? It's I don't mind I have no problems asking my guides for, you know, questions or, hey, look, if I got to do this work, you're going to have to like give me something here. Mm-hmm. Like, because when I deal with spirits, I think we talked about this once before. I tell them, you know, don't just put the spirit in front of me. I want to know who they are. I want to know their name, how they died. I want to know something because I want evidence. Mm-hmm. And I want to be able to give it to that person. So I do. I ask that. And I have actually had a medium tell me, well, you really can't do that. But I do that.
Oh, I asked for clarification
but
too.
that works for
Mm-hmm.
me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because I don't have time. I used to see spirits as clearly as I see you. But then some of our gifts get pulled back. Not because they're gone. They're not gone. They're always there. But you have other areas that you're actually kind of fine-tuning and kind of cleaning up the mess where you may have not done it so great the first time. Mm-hmm. And so you're learning to work with other energies. I kept saying, I want to understand energy. Boy, did I learn about energy. So I've created a life around working with energy. And so even if you can't see them, you're still seeing them. Mm-hmm. Even if you can't hear them, you're still hearing them. I mean, I can hear on the outside and inside, and as well as the higher self. But it really just depends on what the lesson is that you're having to learn in the moment of something. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes you'll have clarity and you'll see something really, really great. And then the next minute you're going to do something for somebody else and that's not coming in for you. It's like, what happened? Right. So because you're fine-tuning your
abilities.
Yeah, mm-hmm. You're fine-tuning the abilities. And so the journey is really just about embracing that awesome I am, that oneness, that the whole. Because we're all one. Mm-hmm. We're separate because we're in human form, but we are one. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's really important, is that people need to understand that if we all came together as a one, there really probably wouldn't be any more issues. but we like to create. So what do? We find something to create, whether it's good or bad. We're just trying to create it. And you can think that the movie, The Terminator, when it came out, and you had, what's his name? Arnold Schwarzenegger. And the guy, I think it's in the second one, and she's the guy that is making the bomb, but he doesn't realize that's what he's making. Oh, and so in the future, he thinks what he's doing is right.
Right.
So, but in the future, it actually becomes something worse. Mm-hmm. So that she's going into that part of life to take care of that. So, it's amazing. So we think we're all doing something really, 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 really good. And sometimes it may not be what we see. So if we could just try to stay in our hearts and maybe see that purest form, we might have an opportunity of creating something out there other than we're lifting our frequencies every day.
Right.
So we grow from it.
Right. I think my spirituality is evolving. It's constantly evolving. And I think I'm identifying with spirituality going side by side with compassion. For me, acts of services is one of my love languages. And it's important for me to go forth in the world with compassion and to teach people compassion. And I often wonder, she talked about one of my children who is special needs. And he's actually brain injury. And I often wonder, it makes me think, what is his purpose here? What is, what can he contribute to the world? And his is compassion. And let me tell you, if he'll teach it, he'll give it to you, but then sometimes you have to learn the hard way to be able to have compassion and patience. For me, I want to be able to, in every phase of right now that I'm in, I want to be able to do it with compassion. I want to meet people where they're at. Mm-hmm. I want to be able to also help children that have these abilities and they're recognizing this. And my smallest child, my special needs child kind of actually started me on it. He's a mirror. And so he can read people. Like when they come into the room, he could just read people, and he will chase people off that don't want to be there. That's just the way he is. My little one is the one that came in eyes wide open. He really did. And it really taught me. I had to go and learn these things because I knew me, but I didn't know how to really parent a child that was saying, hey, this is what you need to do for me, Mom. And you better get on it. You need to learn. So I did. I went on that path on trying to be able to be the mom that he needed to be. So that's why I also have a Facebook group called Parents of Intuitive Children.
Right.
Because my little one helped me, 12 years ago, maybe about 11 years ago, to be able to go that path. And so teaching or being able to have a safe space for children to be able to talk about their abilities or because my kid at 2 years old told me what he was in the past life. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, this is who I was. This is how many kids I had. And this is what I did for a job and so on and so forth. And my mouth was just dropped, even though I knew the abilities I had. So it's being able to have that safe space. And I wanted to have that going forward. So that kind of coincides with my spirituality and what my journey is and part of that journey.
Okay, so my journey was really twofold. The first part of my journey was, I really was, and I've already shared this part, seeking a better sense of well-being. Mm-hmm. I wanted to feel better. I wanted to be happy. I wanted to have healthy relationships. And that led me down the self-help world. And so, and in the work that I do, I still work in this field, but I learned about, crises. I learned about the implications of trauma. I learned about brain development. I learned about that stuff. And I also went to therapy for many, many years. And because I did suffer from depression, and I was repeating the cycle that I had grown up with as a child in my relationship with my husband. which was why we didn't have a child for 18 years, because I didn't want to repeat the cycle and do to my child what was done to me. Mm-hmm. So I went down that path of trying to figure out, and that's where journaling came into play. That's where mindfulness I didn't become aware of until I think in the last 15 years, but early on, and I'm talking when I was like 18 and 19, it was really about getting to a healthier place. And it was also the time, so when I was about 19, I was introduced to Marianne Williamson's A Return to Love. Mm-hmm. And it was like 1992 when I was introduced to this book. And it started so there was that part of self-help in trying to get better in terms of my psychological self. Then there was the part of me that had been always seeking an understanding of, and in truth, it was the relationship with God. And in growing up Catholic, I grew up with the belief that God was outside myself.
Absolutely.
Right. And I believed in the sitting in the throne, and that you needed to live by these certain expectations and rules, or you were going to be condemned into a life of hell. Right. And what's interesting about growing up, and everyone's Catholic, or in Catholicism, I think everyone has a very unique experience. Because in my family, it was really about what I chose. It's like, I'm going to choose these 5 things, and that's what I'm going to focus on. Mm. And so growing up, there was judgment that was constantly passed. It's like, these are the things that you need to do, or you're going to burn in hell, or you're going to, you're going to hit that judgment. And you are, and everyone finds, I think, believes that they're the ones who are to judge, to speak to your story about even the priests saying they're the ones who judge. Mm-hmm. So I came up in that religion, and so I had all that guilt, what I call Catholic guilt, right? Catholic guilt. Yes. And so my seeking in religion, and so when I like I said, I did like 5, 6, 7 different religions, but my time with the Jehovah's Witnesses, I was actually in high school at the time. So I used to go, and I never got baptized, but I used to go to their Wednesday groups, and then and you know what I found with them? Even though the belief system is very different than what I have come to believe now, what I found with them was a sense of unity and connection that I hadn't had growing up. I didn't feel safe or connected in my home. And so I had gone with these people who took me in and really helped me feel safe, connected, and that's what I figured out I was longing for. Absolutely. Was that sense of connection and love that I didn't know was missing. Mm-hmm. Really, I didn't know. And so there were 2 parts to that, my journey. Mine was the psychological experience, and then it became more and more of the spiritual understanding. So A Course in Miracles was introduced to me early on because of the book, Marianne Williamson's book. But I opened that book and I was like, what the? Is this in English?
I asked her that too. I still will call her and go, what does this mean?
So I remember shutting the book and putting it down and being like, I'm not that smart. I'm not there yet. And so what's interesting is people came into my life and they were like, hey, have you read Deepak Chopra? I'm like, well, who the heck is Deepak Chopra? Have you read Wayne Dyer, who leaned at the time into the psychological part, and he started to kind of talk more about the metaphysical part and the connection to God as he, I think, became more and more into his truest self. Mm-hmm. And so I went on that journey and I kind of connected with what resonated with me. Mm-hmm. And then I would say in the last 15 years, the 2 worlds came together for me. Mm-hmm. It was like, and I think that's what's happening in our world today, is that the science, especially when you look at quantum physics, the science of just energy and understanding how energy works is in culmination now with our psychological selves. And so there's all this. It's interesting how it's overlapping so much now. And that's kind of my journey. What's interesting is that I knew that I was intuitive, or that I kind of could feel things, but it wasn't until, let's see, I'm probably 9 years now, where I intentionally learned how to connect with my truest, highest self. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Before that, it was just, it kind of feels right, or it doesn't feel right, or, oh, there was something weird about that, or or I bet it seems like that's going to happen. Before, that's how I functioned. And then I started to really understand that there was something beyond myself, but not beyond myself, because if we are truly one, that which we're reaching is ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the oneness comes into play. So in the last several years now, I am a teacher and a student of a course of love. And that really is kind of has shaped how I experience spirituality.
Can I ask you a question on that? Why do you think there is such a division out there that in order to be religious, you can't do the self-help?
No, those two are fine together. So you're talking about like organized religion?
Some organized religions will say you can't go down the path of self-help because
I know what you're saying now.
Well,
that
because
type of thing.
that's they're taking away from the self-empowerment
Yeah.
when they're doing that. You know what I mean? Because if you're empowering yourself, you don't need anyone else. That's just that, it's what is that?
Well,
Like if we're all looking at one picture.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of us is going to have a different view of that picture.
Mm-hmm.
right.
So whatever you see in your world is what you need. That's what you're going to need.
Mm-hmm.
But you really don't need it. I mean, that's the whole journey of the oneness, is trying to separate yourself from, the separation of everything and trying to bring it together.
I think what happens is, and I'm not opposed to people finding peace in organized religion. And here's why. I think it's all a personal journey. That's what it is. So if you find peace in that, then that's where you need to be right then.
Right, but there's a piece every religion has a piece of the puzzle.
Right. Or, well, it's all rooted in love.
Right,
I think
exactly.
all religions are
Exactly.
rooted in love. I think what happens, though, because to your question about the why do some religions don't support the self-development, self-help.
Exactly.
And it's an issue of, like what you're saying, is allowing the people who come to our church and encouraging them to find truth. Because we have defined truth by these rules. It's Catholicism, and in my personal opinion, there are the rules that you have to abide by because you're going to be judged at the end of this life.
Absolutely.
And so we need you to believe these to be true to keep you contained in, and for some people, it works because I need that very black and white.
Mm-hmm.
There comes a point for many of us where we no longer want to have the messages told to us.
Because we know there's something greater.
Yeah, there's more to it, and it's an undercurrent within us of wanting to align with truth. Mm-hmm. And so that's when we start to break away from the very prescriptive approaches. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I think that, I get it. We don't want you to go off learning all that new stuff. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We don't need you to go out there finding out this, that, and the other, because you're going to question our authority.
Right. I used to question since I was little.
Yeah.
I mean, catechism school.
I got kicked out.
Yeah. My mom was a catechism teacher.
Oh.
So I would question, well, why? And, as a young kid, I wasn't really given a Bible. Not that to say my parents didn't have one, but I just wasn't.
It's not part of the religion.
It's really not.
No.
I mean, children at that time you're quiet, or you come and you do the thing and then you go off to your own classes, that type of thing. So I questioned all the time, well, why? Because I felt something different. Inside me. So that's why I was wondering, because I always kind of felt that almost because I'm as a parent now, I mean, I think that God gave us what we needed in the inside, and we need to be able to go within in order to be able, because we're so used to the world going outside to look for stuff. You seek out for knowledge, in school or what have you. But really, I mean, this is what I learned from, meditating and those type of things, is just being able to trust and to be able to look within in order to find what those answers. And those answers usually come, during, not all the time, but, usually, they come for me and a lot easier.
What I have come to know most recently, and I say no because I don't lean into the word faith anymore. I think
We talked about that,
it's a deep-rooted knowing where, and I don't have a need to convince you or anybody.
Oh, no,
I don't know.
we understand.
But I know what I want folks to hear, that it's not the need to convince you of what I believe to be true, because it's just a knowing that I'm comfortable with. But what I have come to know is that I am an aspect of God, and I show up uniquely in a way to grow as a soul, or to not grow, evolve as a soul. And it's actually remembering the truth of who we are. So it's going back to the truth before all the shit happened. But the shit had to happen in order for us to want to go back to remembering. So the remembering, and the way I spell it is R-E with a hyphen, member, because it's the belief that we're separate from God. And this is part of my religious background had me believe that he was outside of me.
Absolutely.
And so even like in my thought system, I had to practice the process of not looking outside myself when I'm talking about God, or even looking like thinking, oh, he's on the throne, or it's actually going within and saying, I am a unique aspect of God that's showing up in the world, right? To do whatever work I'm intended to do. But that process of undoing all the stuff that was done to me and for me, it was done to me and for me. So it was done to me until I came to the realization that the abuse I endured as a child, all the things that I experienced to this day, brought me to this place, and it really was for me.
Yeah, I do believe that our experiences, no matter what condition they're in, we came here to learn them. We came to grow from them, and hopefully, evolve and let the rest, settle and bring peace to it. If not, then you'll find other ways of dealing with it, and chances are you'll be coming back and fixing it again.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of looking at it in a positive light and seeing what you gained from it, as what was the reason. Sometimes you're just victim of circumstance, sometimes you're not. So if you are victim of circumstance, then you can't blame yourself, because there was nothing that you could have done to change it. So it's understanding what you gained from it and what you got through it. The whole thing is understanding this, that even if it happened, look where you're at today. Look where you're at today. You survived. That in itself is like a miracle in itself, because some things are so heinous for some people, and yet you have some things that are very glorious, and to like high magnitudes of just the ahas. But we're not all experiencing those same scenarios, so we have to grow with them. And I think it's amazing that we're capable as humans and as spirits to evolve like that. And if it isn't from a God, which I agree is God, where does it come from? Because something's helping us along the way, and it's not just us doing it. We're not doing this by ourselves. There's no way.
Alrighty, well, we've come up on time. Actually, we went over time. But we hope that you continue to join us as we work through and we talk through our different perspectives and our experiences, as we really make an attempt to understand who we truly are and how we can choose how we're going to show up on these day-to-day experiences. All of our contact information and how to reach us will be in the links below. But is there anything final that you would like to share before we...
For me, I would just say, why don't you stop in at Emerald Heart? I'm located in Litchfield Park, off of Indian School and Dysart Road. You can look at the website, which will be connected to our page, and or call. It's a really beautiful place, and I think you would enjoy it.
Lots of things to see in here. I just told her today, I was like, every time I come in here, there's always something new to look at.
Yeah.
And that's how we met.
Yeah.
I just
instantly
popped in.
Knew. Yeah.
Yeah, just popped in. So yes, come and see Angel.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to share about?
I'm on Trinity Rose Healing Arts if you want to get a hold of me, whether Facebook or on Instagram. Oh, and I also do nails. She's telling me.
She also does nails.
I also do nails too, as well. So yeah, I mean, if you want to get a hold of me, I would love to hear from you. And I hope to talk with you and connect with you soon.
So our website is embracingsoulsjourney.com. All of our contact information is there. I also offer coaching. I have actually a new project that I'm launching probably in the next 6 months called Love Being. And so that's really helping you along your journey. So thank you all very much for being with us today, and we will see you next time.
Bye.